everyone. This is the work session of January 22nd for the City of Bel Air Beach. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Robin Aki.
Here.
Councilmember Marv Beam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
And Councilmember Rita Swope was unable to attend.
Okay, very well. We have 4 items on the agenda tonight. The discussion, number 1 is discussion on traffic calming. Number 2 is discussion on 9th Street flooding. Number 3 is discussion on stormwater fee. And 4 is discussion on technology. I'm going to ask for 5 minutes just to update you. I came today from the Florida League of, not the League of Cities, the Suncoast League of Cities, and we were given a legislative update, and I think there's some information, I told you I would keep you advised on it, and there's some information I think you might want to hear, so if you would like, I would be more than happy to give you a quick 5-minute update on legislative update, and I'll do that as number 5, if it's okay. No objection? Okay. I don't see any names after this. Was this all from the city manager, these topics?
Excuse me, it was all from the city council from the last.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, and that's true. Everything came from the last council meeting. So discussion on traffic calming is the first item. And Lynn, I didn't have any attachments. I just had this, just the agenda. That's it, right? That's all we have? Right. Okay. Okay. So we're having a discussion on traffic calming. And just so everyone in the audience knows, this is a work session. We're a little less formal here. We're still following Robert's Rules of Order, but without some of the formality. Typically, because no decisions are made, we do not have to take comments from the audience, but in almost every case, when I ask, council agrees to take comments, but it's not a comment-intensive type thing from the audience. So there may be opportunity for that during each piece, but it's not going to be extensive. So with that, traffic calming.
Well, this subject, just Mayor and Council, this subject keeps coming up. And I had Captain Liner put the box out on 22nd Street again from last Thursday until yesterday. There were 3,181 vehicles in both directions, with the 85th percentile being 25. Of those 3,181, 3,127 of them were doing less than 30 miles an hour. So again, it doesn't meet the threshold to do anything. I think in looking at this, I also asked you for some data on 22nd Street over the last, in 2019. There were 89 warnings given out and 9 citations. And there were 2 warnings given for speed. The majority of the warnings that were given were running the stop sign on 22nd and Bayshore. There were 9 citations, 6 for stop signs, 1 for driving on a suspended license. And how they get this data, it could have been something that happened at 22nd and Gulf Boulevard, like there was a couple DUIs, which I'm sure they were probably on Gulf Boulevard, but it happened in that area. So there wasn't a lot of activity on speed. It's mainly stop sign running or rolling through them, and that was in 2019. Previously, we had done speed studies several times over the last year and a half, and every time, basically, 22nd, there again at 15, for 5 days, 1,561 vehicles traveling both ways, and we've shared this, and it didn't meet the 85th percentile as excessive. So it's really up to the council to decide where we want to go with this. Do we want to create a traffic calming policy, which I have a draft that I've Patty laid at your desk, that, you know, has some requirements, just a draft, and the vice mayor and I have discussed this a couple times in the last week, anyway. I think the city has to decide where we're going to go with this, because it just keeps coming back. And if it's traffic calming policy and they meet the threshold, then what needs to happen is the city will have to budget for whatever's done. But if it doesn't meet the threshold, then in this policy that I kind of have drafted, you can't come back for 3 years. I think there's got to be a timeline, because you can't, because you didn't get it today, you know, the residents didn't want it in total, but I think we have to set up something if we're even going to continue to consider this. But everywhere we put the box, it never has created a problem that meets the threshold.
Lynn, to clarify, did you just redeploy these boxes, or are you talking about the study that we did back in like April of last year or May?
They did one in April. They did one in April. We did 22nd in Bay Shore. We did May 13th through May 17th last year. We did another one in July. And at no time was there an excessive amount of vehicles that were speeding. It was a few, and I'm not going to say that they don't. There are occasional people that speed, but if you, as an example, on Donato, that was a one we did last year also. We had 2,794 vehicles that went through there over that 10-day period. We had 11 vehicles that were going between 31 and 35. Everything else was below that, and nothing higher.
Where is the box placement, like on 22nd? And don't answer that question if you don't want to divulge this, but, yeah, I'm not trying to give away police secrets here, but where, because it matters, you know, I mean, obviously if you put the box placement at the end, you know, as people are coming to the stop sign, they would tend to slow down. Where is it actually placed?
Well, I can tell you, usually it's placed in the middle of the block, because there again, I don't know what the actual linear footage is, but you're coming from a stop sign, or you're coming from a turn going down, so you're not speeding then, or you'd be in the median or somewhere else. So the one that we did on like Donato, we did it at 2 places. We did it at the corner of Donato and Alita, and then we backed it up Donato closer to 22nd Street. But we pretty much came up with the same statistics. And in driving the city, which I do on a daily basis, I can see why people might think you're speeding when you're doing 25 or 26, because they're standing on the side of the road. And, you know, I don't think any of us can really tell how fast somebody's going down the street. But I'm not debating there's issues with a few people, but it's not a large amount, is what I'm basically telling you. It's minuscule in the scheme of cars going down the street. So, but there again, the council's got to decide how they want to handle this in the future, because we've talked about this, I know at least half a dozen times. So I'm open to your comments.
Got a comment. Where did this boilerplate come from?
Another city in Port St. Lucie, and I did some adjustment to it. I reduced it.
That's what I'm saying, is it's a boilerplate from another municipality. I've looked through it, and based on the research that I did back in April, these are not random standards. These are readily accepted standards that if you look at traffic calming policies throughout municipalities everywhere, it's the same numbers. The percentages on the petitions, 3 years for waiting, that sort of thing. These numbers aren't made up. These are standards across all the municipalities that I've looked at. So I think, and I've been kind of professing all along, it's time that the city had a policy on this citywide to stop asking the same question over and over again, expecting different answers. I mean, we keep asking the same questions, we keep saying, these are the results, but then we turn around and ask it again, expecting different answers, and it's time to come up with a uniform policy.
The policy is a good idea. Unfortunately, all the speeders are random. Either landscapers, people outside the city. Very seldom you get anybody in, but it's that one speeder that, with kids out there or older adults, is what you worry about. I don't know, I've thought about it a lot. You know, we've got 3 major areas. One of them is Belle Isle, the other is Howard, the other is 22nd. How do you handle, without putting a police officer or an automated ticket dispenser out there for people that are speeding, how do you handle that situation? You can't. I believe with the few stings that the sheriff has got out there, it seems to be a little less. But would adopting a policy do any good?
It's the process for figuring that stuff out. In other words, rather than just jump to a specific solution, there's the problem recognition, there's the study, and then there's coming up with a recommended action from the city staff of how to deal with it, and then it comes before the council because it's like, okay, this is what we want to do, this is the cost, are you willing to budget it? And then, like his boilerplate says, within 1 year, if it's approved by council, it's got to be enacted. So,
And just to clarify that, it's for the residents in that area. Because they've got to go out and get a petition, and they've got to meet those percentages. And that's pretty standard in all of the policies that I even looked at. I just thought this one had a little more information on things like speed humps. They even had roundabouts in there, but I took that out. But, because I thought about that maybe on 22nd, put a roundabout at Donato. No.
Roundabout at Big Short 22nd.
it could be my circular drive.
No, but this way, then the residents of the neighborhood are the ones that are the proponents, and they accept it. If we're going to put a speed bump or a speed table, then, and they bless that they're fine with that by the percentages, and then the council approves it, and we budget for it, then that's what happens. And, you know, it needs to stay there for a period of time, even though 6 months from now they don't want it. You know, somebody may not want that.
It's like underground. We got the ordinance now for underground, so, but we can't take it out. That's right.
It seems to me that there are just a few people that are very unhappy with speeders. I see them pass by my house every day, but I lose my mind about it. Just like what you said, there's a course of action to make something happen. And as far as I'm concerned, those people haven't done the legwork to make this happen. Now, I will say that you go to any of the surrounding towns, and 5 miles per hour does make a difference. I speed up immediately. I see that I'm out of that 30-mile-an-hour zone, and I speed up. Not that I go much faster, but We are 5 miles per hour faster than everybody around us, and that may be some encouragement. I've also noticed that in those 30-mile-per-hour zones, it seems like I see more opportunity for the police to grab somebody, whereas in our area, I don't see that quite as often. I'm not saying lower the speed limit, I'm just stating my observations. But back to the individual neighborhoods where there are specific needs or wants, I feel like it's not our place to just jump on this and say, let's throw a bunch of speed humps out on the street to make you feel better. Instead, I think the message should be that, all right, if you want this to happen, go see your neighbors, knock on some doors, and bring me something back in writing that your neighborhood wants this.
I agree with you. I just saw something on the news, and I think it was up in Tampa, or one of the neighborhoods up there, where they had a habitual speeding problem, couldn't get anything done, and they actually wound up, the residents agreed to have the speed humps. And it was actually noticed, and there was actually an orange sign on the side of the road saying there's going to be a public hearing about this thing. So I will do, and I've said this from the beginning with undergrounding, and I'll be the same with this, I'll do what the residents want, to an extent. I mean, so I'm with Lynn too. If you want us to put in speed humps, we'll do it, okay, if that's what your neighborhood wants. But you're going to keep them, okay? And I don't want to hear 6 months from now, I don't like them, or it's making noise, or I'm hearing acceleration. We're telling you up front that that might be some of the problems that you get. So weigh all of that, and if it makes sense, and that's what you want the council to do, I'm going to support what the local residents do. But I do think that if we do this, we have to open it up to the public, have them come in here, and I want to hear from everyone. I'm not going to just hear from 1 or 2 people, because we do have some people that are more vocal than others. So, but I'm not against it. As for the 85% rule, I was speaking with the deputy after the last council meeting, and we were talking about, it's like everything else with traffic speeding, law enforcement, everything else. 85% of the people always follow the rules, okay? If you go out on the interstate, 85% of the people are doing, the speed limit or slightly above. It's that 10-15%. And I'm, again, with you, Marv, it's that 10-15% of that that's going to kill somebody. So how do we do it when we have basically 1 deputy patrolling the city? We can add extra deputies, it comes at a cost, and we can target the area, we can do spot checks, we can do, targeted enforcement, but it comes at a price. So that's a decision then that we have to make. But, what's the worst area? I would maintain to you that Gulf Boulevard's a horrendous area too, but when we took the tests again, 85% were doing the speed limit, yet there's probably people that come by at 70 miles an hour on a Sunday night or a Saturday night sometimes. I can hear them, and you can tell that somebody's speeding excessively sometimes. So it's not an easy solution, but I do agree, we've spoken about this a lot. So I don't know what the policy all says here, but I think if we push it out to the residents to make the first step, I like that idea.
Well, the main thing that I want to do is protect the older residents of the city like myself and the young kids coming up, so they don't get hurt. Would it be smart to put a walkway line like they do a bike lane on the side of 22nd Street because it's so narrow? Would keep the cars over to one side and maybe direct the kids going to the beach or the parents going to the beach in that walk area. I don't know what the answer is. I hate to do a policy if it's not necessary. Would signage work? I brought this up just to have this conversation, to see if we could, just get a simple solution to a very sporadic problem.
We, the council, don't need to jump to the specific solution to this. This is a process for initiating how to look at this thing in a constructive, objective, analytical way. Traffic calming falls into 3 categories: education, enforcement, and engineering. Okay, there's visual ways of handling this thing, there's physical, vertical, there's horizontal solution to this thing. What this does is it initiates an action so that the residents can band together and say, there's a problem. We're not jumping to speed tables. We're not jumping to slowing down the speed limits. We're not jumping to signage. We're just saying there is a problem here. We would like the expertise of the city staff to examine this thing, do a study, and then come up with a recommendation for how's the best way to deal with this thing. And then, once that recommendation is made, it goes back to the residents, and they say, we either agree with your solution or we don't. But the process is there, and it's not jumping to any solution. I mean, we're talking about bicycle lanes, we're talking about slowing down, we're talking about speed difference. No, it's just saying, this is how you learn to recognize a problem, and this is how you start the process of how to deal with it.
Okay, let's try it.
I will add this, that it sounds like a very lengthy, timely process, and it's not making anything go away anytime soon. So this is going to continue coming up every month.
But at least now you say, here's the policy, this is how you start it. You don't just say, well, we've looked at it, and there's not a problem, and then a week later, somebody else comes in and says, we've got the process. Well, gee, we just dealt with that last week.
I think that it's unfair to dump it on the city, on City Hall, and say, we have a problem, and we'd like for you to give us some options, and then we'll see if we agree or not. They know what the options are. They know that they can have speed humps, they can have flashing signs, they can have stop signs, they can have whatever it is that they want. And on 22nd, they may not want the same thing that they want on another street. I think it's so granular and such a small amount of people in small areas that I believe that they could get together and rally their neighbors and say, yes, I would like to have this, and just walk the streets and come up with a petition. I think that that's a much faster, more getting results solution, and it would be one that they would have to live with for 3 years. But they're going to perceive this as, well, all you're doing is you're just postponing something, and they're not going to see it the way that you and I would see it. That's just my take on it. I don't know how everybody else feels, but maybe Robin has something she'd like to inject into this conversation, because she's one of her area right there has been one of the complainers. Is that right?
Right.
So.
I mean, no, I see your point. I mean, to get the citizens to rally with a petition and get the majority and then bring it to the council. So, I mean, that definitely could be organized and done. Now, would there be a conflict of interest if I was involved with that? Am I allowed to, since I'm on council?
As long as we're not involved,
You're not with any other council member.
I know that, but can I ask you to sign it if you're on my street?
I would probably have to opt out.
Yeah, you can ask another council member, but because then
Well,
you're,
but somebody else in the petition,
anybody else, you represent the whole town.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
Oh,
it's
you get
probably
your wife.
common sense,
yeah.
conflict of interest.
I would just stay away from any council member and their family,
Okay.
just to be safe, but anybody else is fair game.
Can I just add, is I think that having a policy in place is a wise decision. I think we should probably pursue this because it makes it a clean, defined way to bring an issue rather than, every council meeting we have someone stand up and says they have, we could say, hey, Robin's group is trying to organize something on your street. Why don't you get with them, after the council meeting or something to that nature. Just an example, Robin. I do think, and I know we're not looking for solutions, but, speed limit's 35, interior streets, I just think should be lower. I don't know if that's even something we should talk about or not, but I think that's
It's 25 on the interior streets.
right.
It's 25 if not posted otherwise, so Gulf
Right.
Boulevard's 35, but interior streets 25.
Yeah, I'm not, Gulf Boulevard, I don't feel that that's, it is what it is. It can be 20, it can be 35, it can be 30, it doesn't really make a difference, I don't think, because I think most people do the speed limit out there. Interior, I think a lot of people do the speed limit. I know that I have a neighbor that I think he's speeding when he goes by me, and it's the neighbor's father, he drives a car that has a, loud exhaust, not loud, just a faster car, it gives the perception that they're going fast and they're not. So, and I'm just gonna close in saying that when we talked about the speed calming, speed humps, things like that, we had a big turnout in the audience of people that didn't want them on their street. So that's, which then reiterates why we need to have a policy. And if it's something we are talking about doing on a street, that the street needs to be in support of it, because clearly it's an issue for some to have speed humps.
Yeah, just to just give you some final comments. It is a petition. That's really what this policy is doing. There's information in there, just generalized information about statistical stuff and, possible solutions, but it is a petition process. That's what it's meant to be. And if they meet the petition requirements, then we move on to the process, into the next step. And then it comes to the city council eventually. But there again, it's the residents making it happen. It's not me or the city council or some of the staff, saying, okay, a resident will come to us sometimes and say, oh, I want a stop sign there, okay. But the resident across the street, I don't want no stop sign in front of my house. So kind of it's this process, and it's done this way in any city that has traffic calming. It's the same process for the most part in the state of New York. I could look at 100 of them, and it'll all be the same process. Go get your signatures the first time, find out what you want to do. It's got to be X amount of residents, and then we'll see if you do get the support for it. Because you may be surprised. I mean, in Robin's case, it's kind of localized there. It's like there's several homes in your area. You've got one across the street, kind of catty corner from you. Next to you, after the vacant lot, there's little kids. So it's a localized area. But the guy that lives, 10 houses from you, he probably has no interest in it because he doesn't have any kids. So that's why the process is there, to let the residents decide.
Do we want to, this policy's not adopted tonight, so the question is, we have to review this as council. I know you and Vice Mayor have read through this, but we have not.
No, what
We wanna
I'd
get back
like you to do
for the
is-
next work session, because I hate to bring it to a council meeting if we're going to have changes.
No, what
So-
I'm asking you to do is get the comments back to me.
Okay.
Probably by the 10th of February, does that seem reasonable? That's
Our next meeting's the 19th, yeah.
Yeah, so if you get them back by we'll say the 10th of February, I don't even know what day that is. It's probably a Monday, is that right?
Monday.
Yes.
It's a guess.
That's Monday, because the 17th is the Monday.
Okay, so if you can get them back, if you have any comments or changes or things you think we need to add or take out, then we'll come back to the next work session and try to put this to bed.
Finalize it and then adopt it. Okay, fair enough. Does that work, does those dates work for everyone?
Yes.
So by the 10th, we get comments to the city manager individually, and then you'll pull them all together, get us a revised copy for the next work session, we'll hone this up, and that'll be that. It's good, we'll approve it at the following, so we'll approve it for the March meeting.
Right.
Everything is good, okay? We didn't open it up to the floor. Any objections to open it up to the floor? See none. Anyone want to speak on this? Okay.
I'd like to add a comment. Can we add just a brief agenda item on the next council meeting, just stating that we're working on it? And it's not really a discussion, it's just more of we wanted to let everyone know this is what's going on.
We'll just put it under general business.
Okay.
Yeah, or the city manager comments or something like
Finish or
that.
something.
Yeah,
Something like that.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So that'll take care of traffic calming. So next comes the discussion of the 9th Street flooding. Give everyone a little history of this, and I see him in the audience here, Mr. Fritz Will wrote me, and I didn't initially know that I thought he did not write these emails to me, and then I went back and I checked my records and he did. I want to just paraphrase what these say so that it sets the stage for what he's asking, and then the council's going to address this. So he wrote initially to me on the 25th, and he said, "Dear Mayor, I was happy today when I received the update on the project the City of Bel Air Beach is working on, especially about the 3rd through 6th Street Drainage Improvement Program." And I'm again paraphrasing this. I live at Harbor Drive. I'm not going to say the exact address. I'm wondering when the city's going to take care of the same issue on 9th Street. I talked to several neighbors, and we all agree it has to be done very soon. We would like to know when the drainage issue is going to be resolved on 9th Street. And he told me that he remembered very well when I ran as mayor that I promised to fix all the flooding. I said I would look into it. I didn't say I was going to fix it all, but we are going to try and fix it all. When can we, how can we help you to get to your promise? So the reason why I didn't answer him back is then 5 days later he sent me a letter and said, "Today I noticed that city employees installed a ring that will hold the backup valve at Harbor Drive, his house. Thank you very much for your fast response. I'm very impressed. Hopefully the valve will be installed soon and will prevent the backflow." But apparently he still wanted an answer. So that's fine, we're going to get the answer. And then he wrote to me on the 3rd of December, and that was a letter I never received, but he handed it to me at the last council meeting. So the issue is the flooding on 9th Street. And I will say initially that the proper person for this is our city manager, okay? Although I'm the mayor of the city, it sounds really impressive. I'm just like every other council person up here. I just get to chair the meetings. So the city manager is the one who schedules these projects, and he's the one that we work with, and he executes these projects. So I know he did get in touch with you, and I know you spoke with him, so he is the proper person. But with that said, I didn't have an answer for you, and I felt that that is something we should, as a council, have an answer for. Several people here who ran said that we wanted to have a list of roadways and when they were going to be fixed, and flooding and when it was going to be fixed. So I asked the city manager in a conversation afterwards, does he have a list of the flooding projects and what our cost is to handle them, and what the timetable would be to fix them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager for the answers, because I don't have the answer for you as to when this will get done. I do know that we have, collectively as a city, and this started before the latest council came in, they started from 1st Street and they started to tackle all the flooding. And I think we're through this year we'll be through 7th, 8th Street. So I think we're coming up with 9th. It doesn't mean it's being done sequentially, it's just the way it worked out. But the check valves, the sunny day check valves have been put into place. And again, I'll say this every time, and I'm going to keep saying it because I don't want anyone to get misinformation. When we're talking about flooding, we're talking about sunny day flooding, we're talking about tidal flooding. We are not talking about catastrophic flooding during a hurricane. There is nothing any city manager or any city governmental officials will ever be able to do should we get a really bad hurricane. It's going to flood and we should evacuate. You build your house up, that's how you combat against that. So we're talking about the other stuff that's just routinely messing up our roads. With that, Mr. Reeves.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we updated the cost, just to kind of give you a quick update. We updated the cost this late spring, early part of summer for the master stormwater plan. And we have completed 1st through 6th Street. The 6th Street project, 3rd through 6th, was just finished last week. We did the walkthrough. And we have placed valves on 12th, 13th, and 9th Street. We've got a couple issues on 9th and 13th that we're working with the valve company because they're leaking. Not to the degree that it used to happen, because it used to, as an example, on 9th and 13th, it used to go well up the street, and it doesn't do that anymore. It doesn't go halfway to 3/4 up the street. The last time the water came up, it didn't go that far, based on my visual of those streets. But we are working with that. We prioritized the projects. We looked at them as what I'll call more of an emergency, something that we really need to fix. Like 1st Street, 2nd Street was really bad. They weren't even passable sometimes when the water came up, because that area just in that harbor 1st and 2nd 3rd through 6th, they had problems also. 7th Street, we've had that problem. I've lived here 21 years, and that's been a problem with high tide ever since I've lived here. So it's not anything new, it's just, so what we're trying to do, the next project that's going out to the engineers to do the design work is 7th and 8th Street, and that's in this year's budget. The next group of projects we categorized as twos, and those were 9th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 22nd, 23, and Morgan and 25th. Then we categorized the marina and the Bellevue Estates Island as a 3, because traditionally, if you look at the water maps that we have in the stormwater plan, Bellevue Island Estates doesn't really flood, it just gets in the street. And it's in the curbs, it's not up in anybody's house for the most part. Okay. So what we're trying to correct is, as the mayor said, we're only trying to correct high tide problems. We're not trying to correct 3.5 inches of rain in an hour that happened last year. It's not going to fix it, is where we live. So in this, the next project in the kind of the priority list was 12th and 13th. And 9th Street, I'm hoping that we get the valve fixed, because that was kind of at the bottom of the 2 projects. And the reason being, it was 9th and City Hall, the drainage back here, that was all tied together. So we were trying to, we put the valve in to try to stop at least the water coming in. And we do have the firms coming back to work with us on that valve issue. The engineer is coming.
It was last year that you put that valve in on 9th, right?
It was fall, I want to say October, November, sometime. Yeah, so, but prior to that, it was doing just what it does on my street. I mean, it goes up past, I live at the end, and Councilwoman Swope lives probably in the middle, I guess, and it goes up past her house up the street. So, you know, it's the same situation, but we're trying to correct those with, where we can. So, currently, the next project, which would be next fiscal year, would be 12th and 13th, because that's a bigger flooding problem. 9th would probably fall into the next couple of years, and I don't have a specific year because our budget only goes out so many years, but we are trying to take care of 9th Street with the check valve. It's not the intent to go replace the piping or the catch basins or any of that stuff at this point. But we're hoping the check valve fixes the problem.
So if I understand you correctly, on 9th Street, you've already put in the check valve. It's not totally working up to its spec. I know you've worked with the manufacturer and you have people coming out. I think they've been out already, you've been talking with them, I know that. So we're hoping that that's going to solve the majority of the problem. If not, then you have to go into the more extensive repairs with the piping and stuff, and that's not in this year's planning.
It's not in this year's plan. You know, the next project is actually 12th and 13th, because those are the areas that if you look at the stormwater map, and I'll be glad to share that with Mr. Will, you know, if he comes in and sees me, I'll be glad to show him. The modeling, 12th and 13th, it takes care of all of Harbor Drive and goes up the street on those streets. And that's what it did on First, and then the next biggest one is 18th Street. It comes up there. So their priorities as a 2, but they're not in they're not in the top 2s. They're in the middle to the lower 2s.
How confident are you, if you get this check valve working up to its proper spec with the manufacturer, that it's going to alleviate
Well,
sitting out of this.
if, I'm confident that we get this issue resolved, and it seems that it's the larger check valves that have created the problem. And, you know, we've even looked at, okay, because they are a little bit flexible, maybe in the turn, the flap, something got out around or something, so the company is sending their engineer back here. The president was here in December, and we are in the process of getting that scheduled, and I'm hoping it happens this month, because I've got the same issue on 13th Street. The valve on 12th works fine. The valve first, second, third, or first and second, they've been in over a year, they work fine. The only maintenance we had to do on them was we had to clean a few barnacles off. But they're working fine.
Are these self-installed, all of these, or did we have others outside?
No, we had contractors install them. We put in the smaller ones, you know, if we could put in we attempted to put in this big one on 9th Street. I don't know if that was part of our problem, but we'll get that worked out with the manufacturer. And the manufacturer has been very good about, oh, well, I'll replace the valve for you at no cost to us. It's just the man hours to put it back in. And the one that we did replace, he actually sent the engineer out and the sales rep, and they helped us put it back in. So, I mean, they're behind that product, and it's used extensively throughout Ford. So, you know, I'm confident once we figure out what the leak problem is, that will at least reduce it. It's not going to stop 3.5 inches of rain. It's not going to stop that, and it's still going to stay there. Because the pipe capacity is what we got. That's you know. And Mr. Will, I'll be glad, you know, you can come and look at the stormwater plan. I'll be glad to show it to you, so you kind of understand what I'm talking about with the water modeling.
Council?
Can I just reiterate that this is an engineered plan, it's not our staff making these decisions. So, you know that we've taken proper procedures to make sure that we have a plan in place. Although it may not be the fix that we're all looking for, because we can't elevate roads and we can't raise houses. That's the only way to truly fix the problem. It's what we have available to us.
Council, I know Mr. Will is in the audience. I'd like to open it up to the audience, see if he has any comments or anyone else. No objection, Council? Mr. Will, I'm sure you want to say something.
Yeah, hi, Fritzville, 905 Harbor Drive. I understand the issue. I still would like to have some kind of a time frame. I know you're working on it, and I appreciate everything you do, trust me. But, I mean, I gotta have a time frame. Is it a year, is it 2 years? I mean, I ran a business myself, and without a time frame, there's nothing. So I know you're working on it, you're waiting for the contractor, but I still don't know when is he going to be here, when is the problem going to be solved. You understand my issue. Also, 9th Street, you have the sandbag area over here. And when the weather is really bad and the people want to pick up the sandbags, they can't get through 9th Street because it's flooded, unless they have a pickup truck. And then when they come through, I was almost ready to put up a sign in front of my garage, no wake zone. I mean, it comes halfway up my driveway. And I mean, I don't mind as long as I don't get all the mulch from all the neighbors. So, I mean, we have a problem. Yeah, we all have a problem. And again, I would appreciate some kind of a time frame, if you know it.
Well, I'll get a date see where that's at through Kyle, because he's the one that's taking care of that. I'll find out when that engineer is coming back, and I'll let you know that.
I appreciate it.
But, as far as repairing the whole stormwater project, it's down the list a little bit. I'm talking, the pipes and the catch basins.
Thank you. Mr. Will, I want to thank you for the way you handled everything, okay? This is exactly the way it's supposed to be handled, okay? You had an issue with the city, communicated, and again, my apologies, I didn't think I had to get back to you after the first email, but you were very respectful all the way along, you've been very understanding. Mr. Reeves will be in touch with you, and for any reason, if you need more information, or listen, we're limited too. It sounds like he's on this one. It's not like he's dropped the ball in any way, shape, or form here. The manufacturer's coming out, but if it's not happening fast enough, or you feel it should go a little quicker, you know how to use that microphone. Come on back here and let us know, because we're going to move on to other projects and think about other things, but for you, you live this every day. It's your house, so just make sure it doesn't go away. Keep it in front of us if you have to, and let us know what's happening. Keep us advised, and if we do a good job, let us know that too.
Will do, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council, any other comments? Mr. Reeves, you'll just deal directly then with Mr. Will, and let us know too. I mean, if
Yeah.
there's anything that you need that we can help you with. I mean, we are going to buy a lot of check valves. I remember last year researching this, and this is a very big manufacturer, and they're going to be getting a big contract for every one of our check valves, so they have every reason to help you, and it sounds like they are.
They are.
Yep, that's great.
I just want to say that the way the different streets are being addressed, the priorities, I mean, it's not just a subjective thing. The criteria is basically broken down, 1, 2, and 3. One is the critical one where people's houses and property are being adversely impacted with water damage and that sort of thing. The second one is where streets are impassable for a certain period of time, and third is just standing water. The streets are passable. So, I mean, there's some objective criteria to some of this stuff, and that has to be utilized to deal with the shortages in funding and stretching out the reserve funds and things like that. So it's not arbitrary. One last thing, just on a personal note, I've always wondered is there seems to be a lot of focused flooding in that area. Are these things that were disclosed when the properties were sold by the realtors or by the previous owners? Was there any disclosure on the recurring flooding problems down there? None. No realtor disclosed that information? The previous owner or the seller never disclosed that information, that there were recurring flooding problems on your street? Sir? No? Okay, thank you.
I would like to add something.
That would be there's houses down there, mainly 1st through 5th or 6th, that are repetitive loss. And those have to be disclosed by law. And FEMA sends out a letter every year if your house has had a claim for your flood insurance. So if you've never gotten one of those, your house has never been flooded. But that's part of the process for the flood insurance, and that's, there again, how the system is kind of trying to work in the worst repetitive loss area, other than condos, which we don't have any drainage over there. It's the Gulf of Mexico, is this end of town.
Flooding is another topic that keeps coming up in these meetings, and I certainly don't have a problem trying to provide an answer, but I'm wondering if it would be beneficial if maybe we had a list of current projects recently completed, and future projects.
Lynn's smiling last time.
Somewhere, so that people can actually go to our website and see that we are actively working on these problems. I know it's a little bit of extra work, but maybe just something small that we could put on the website.
I will tell you, at some point in time, you got the list of the projects, the list and the estimated cost. I can't tell you, pin it down to what day I gave it to you, but, we can take that list it had the completed projects on it, and it was just updated. So, you know, we can put that on the website, that's not a
Yeah,
big
it's
deal.
not for us, it's so that it's
Right.
readily available for other people, so
Yeah.
they don't have to call.
Yeah, it's
or-
basically a sheet like this,
Perfect.
and when I complete one, I take it off, and it actually even recalculates the number for me. I don't know how I did that, but. But, yeah, we can do that, we can put that on there.
Actually, I asked you for, Lynn's chuckling, because I asked him for the same thing in conjunction with number 3 and with number 2 here, so I think we are going to, you know, I know he gave it to us, and I think my response to him was, Lynn, I've got a box of stuff at home, so I'm sure it's in that box someplace, but if we can get another copy of it, that'd be
Yeah.
terrific, because I think that helps with this stormwater fee, because I have questions about what we have to fix, and I heard some of it in the finance meeting, but that'll take us into the next topic. But does anybody else have anything on item number 2 on the discussion on 9th Street flooding? Mr. Will, you satisfied with what we're doing? You let us know if it doesn't work out the right way, okay?
I'm never satisfied,
I can't help you then, but I'll do my best.
nobody can.
All right, fair enough. Okay, next item is number 3, the discussion of the stormwater fee.
Well, we've been around this a few times too, and that's kind of what I'm hoping this work session does, it moves some things along. I gave you in the last council meeting a copy of the proposal from First Row. And Vice Mayor and I have had a couple discussions on it, and he actually helped me out, he came up with a little timeline. If the council wants to go forward with this, the cost is $36,000. We'd have to do a budget amendment, but we could at least move forward. And that would mean the council comes to a consensus tonight, and then we would bring it to you at the next meeting for approval. And it would probably take about 6 months with the engineering, the legal groundwork, and the validation, I'm guessing. Could be shorter. It's not a big project. Then we'd have to have an ordinance, and that's 2 readings. And then, basically, to lay out the process, then we would submit that to the county, and it would be billed on the water bill, along with our trash and other things. And then that money would come back to the city, and it could only be used for stormwater, it couldn't be used for anything else. It could be used for stormwater maintenance, or stormwater projects, but it cannot be, how do I say it, dumped into the general fund. It's specific. You have seen the proposal from Mr. Rowe, and in the discussion we had at the last meeting, we looked at Libby Rodriguez, but in talking to Chris, I think he felt more comfortable with this. Libby didn't really hadn't done it yet, I guess is what I'm saying. He felt Stantec was a better situation, so we used this firm for the undergrounding, and kind of the same process. We used them, they validated it for us, did all the collection and stuff there. So what I'm asking the city council, and I'll answer any questions I can, do we want to go forward with this? Is the council ready to proceed? Because what you gave me 3 or 4 months ago-ish was, authorized me to go out and get this data for you. And Councilmember Shirley and I have spent several hours together going over this, plus with another attorney that we also talked to, Mark Lawson. And he gave us a range of 40 to 80,000 to do the same work. So,
And this is for the study on how to implement the fee, correct?
it basically, what it does, the engineering firm will do the study work. They will come up with a fee based on our stormwater projects and the maintenance, and they'll develop that, because it's basically based on impervious surface. There'll be a fee for, it'll kind of be similar to our trash fee. There's a fee for single-family homes, and there's a fee for the condos, because that's the difference, you know. They pay because they take all their trash to a bulk dumpster, so their fee's different than, our home air or Robbins. So that's the process. Then Chris would do the legal documentation that we need to go to get it validated. And you want that validation because if you don't do that, someone can come back 5 years from now and say, I want my money back. So we don't want to go anywhere but the validation. And he has done this before, and I'm very comfortable with Chris. I think he did a really good job for us on the undergrounding, and some of the council members here know that. So it's your pleasure at this point.
Everybody has I know there's 2 separate fees for a single home, but everybody in a single family home has the exact same fee?
Generally, that's how it's done.
Or does it go by because 1st through 6th need stormwater stuff done, they have to do?
No, it's got to be, it's developed kind of like fair and equitable. It's kind of like what was done with the utilities undergrounding in your neighborhood. Maybe this guy's was $10,400 and yours might have been $11,000, but everybody paid the same.
And I've done a little research on this, and I stress a little research, not a lot, okay? So I just take issue at some of the stuff that you've said or maybe been told. It doesn't have to be all single-family houses are the same. I've got a 2,000 square foot family, single-family house. There's people in the city that have 10,000 square foot houses, and it goes by impervious surfaces in some places. So you can actually make it. That guy who has 10,000 square feet, maybe stretched out on a 2 lot parcel. It's a hell of a lot bigger than the house that I have that's stretched out on a 40 by 25. So they would pay a higher fee. I mean, there can be a graduated type fee that, the guy living in a small house isn't paying what somebody in one of these mega mansions is paying.
That is true, Mayor, that you could have a graduated fee, but I'm just telling you that traditionally it has been a fee that is just spread through the community.
I mean, it's a little more work to do with impervious surfaces. Same thing if you have, if you have concrete driveway versus paver driveway versus shell driveway. I mean, one's impervious and one is, is pervious. So it's how much water you're displacing on this thing. So when we get this study back from this individual, I mean, is it going to give us options, or is it just going to say, here's the way to do this? Because in that, we just don't have 3 ideas here, just hashing things out. And like I say, I really didn't spend a lot of time with this, but I would like the council to see all the options before we levy any increase in fees, which as far as I'm concerned is, even though it's a fee, it's a tax. I mean, it just comes with your water bill, but it's still extra money out of your pocket. So I want to make sure that, that we can justify it to the citizens and say, okay, here's why we're all paying the same. Maybe it's too much work to figure out impervious surfaces, or here's why we're not paying the same,
Well, I would say, based on the fee we got, it would be monumental to do every single home. Because typically, what I understand they do, and Jody, you may have some feedback on that also. What I understand they do is they do a selection of homes, and they take the impervious surface and take an average. And that's probably how they do it, to the fact that the fee is the same for everyone. As an example, I think, is it Largo, Jody, that you've got?
Yes.
And her impervious surface, I don't know what it is because I'm not real sure where it's at, but she pays $25 a month?
That's correct, it's a commercial property though.
Right.
Yeah, so it's $25 a month, but I also have a residence that's in Largo, and I want to say it's $8 a month or something like that for, so there is some variable there. And, if you read through the standard proposal, they go through, they say they review various methodology approaches, they come up with a fair and equitable. They do a benchmark survey, which gives, you know, will explain the methodology and how they come about the pricing. So it's a very tactical approach. They're not just haphazardly throwing numbers at it. I'm certain that probably lot sizes play a part in that price, you know, whatever the fee's going to be. Because even though someone might have a bigger square footage house, doesn't mean that their lot's any bigger and they're having a more impact than yours is. So, you know, there's a whole process to go through to get to that. You know, the last thing they want is to have a dispute on the numbers they come up with. So they do go through this methodology that gives them something that they can argue and will hold up in court.
The only thing I'm just trying to think devil's advocate what people would probably object to is like, for example, like, you know, where we live, we don't have flooding issues compared to like 9th Street. So we're contributing money to something that we may never benefit from. Some people are probably going to object that.
I
So
don't have
I'm not
flooding on my
saying
street,
I would be happy
understand
to, I'm not saying me personally, I'm just trying to think, you know, the other side and to
But-
take that into consideration. That's why I was asking if it was like a graduated,
So
or is it
my-
by like neighborhood, like this neighborhood floods, so they get a higher versus mine who doesn't, you know?
It's going to be a nightmare. I mean, a lot of us on the island have put new seawalls in. With those seawalls, we went ahead and put drainage holes in them. We ran underground pipes from our gutters to the seawall, and most of the water runs out into the ocean. So I would say about half of the homes on Louisa have those drainage holes, and a lot of people have put in those underground pipes to prevent the flooding. The inner city, on the other hand, has got the issue, where does the water go? So you've got to make it fair. I mean, we're talking tens of scenarios. Just get it done, give it an average cost, and level it, you know, along everybody, because you're going to have 10 to 15 different arguments. I've done this, I put gutters, I don't want gutters, I live in the inner city, I live on the water. You know, where do you go from here?
Can I just add, if this option isn't, if we don't exercise this option, it's going to be a tax increase. We are going to have to increase taxes to pay for this. So even with what we're talking about, it scratches the surface. It doesn't, it's not by any means going to pay the bill for the amount of flood, for the flood, to pay for the flood plan that we have in place. We can't do all the improvements with our current budget, so we'll have to raise rates, we'll have to raise taxes, and then we still have to maintain the work that Lynn's doing at the moment. So everything that's being installed is going to have to be maintained. So this is an ongoing fee. It either gets a minor fee like this, or we raise taxes.
I'd like to make a comment here. We all get this Quality Cities magazine. The last issue, there's a 2-page article on special assessments that is basically the stormwater fee, the special assessment. And it's written by Chris Rowe, okay? And he explains that a special assessment is a special benefit that everybody receives. It's a 2-part test. Everybody has to receive a special benefit, and it has to be a fair and reasonably apportioned assessment, okay? So everything I've heard our concerns about is what you hire Chris Rowe and Stantec to do, because they are going to do the study, they are going to do the legal groundwork to ensure that this holds up to a legal standard and can't be argued later on. That's what the validation process is all about. The validation process is basically the city doing a suit against itself to take a look and see how robust our methodology is. So that's why I think that Chris Rowe has the expertise. The city has a track record with EEI undergrounding, and if he's recommending we go to Stantec, it's because he thinks that's the smoothest way and the quickest way to get the job done. That's what hold up to the rigors of any future challenge. I'm all for this.
I guess my concern isn't, and I said this last time, isn't so much the validity of the project, because I think there's absolute merit to this. We have to address this one way or the other. Where I disagree somewhat is that it must be a tax increase or we must go to a fee. I'm holding in my hand, again, a little bit of research. I'm talking 20 minutes of research that I did. Okay, water project funding sources. There's 8 pages of grant information put out by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I haven't heard that we have, and now all of these don't apply to waste stormwater. Some do, some don't. This is right on their website. But some of these projects may, and this is only one brochure. There was other stuff out there. I saw a lot of stuff out there. So my question is, before I go, and you know how much adverse I am to ever going into the taxpayer's pocket, before I go into someone's pocket to take money out to do this, again, totally valid project, is there someone else who can pay for it? Jody and I were speaking briefly before the meeting today, and I said, you know, Palm Harbor got $8.9 million for their undergrounding, okay? And we paid for it all ourselves over here. So, why not? Why didn't we get 8.9 million? Maybe they did something that they qualified for, that we can't qualify for. I don't know. I don't know how they got that 8.9 million. But what I want to know first, before I would vote to go forward with this project, or even do the research, because $36,000 is a lot of money. We're not going to fund this parks thing, it looks like, and that's $65,000 a year. We're going to give $36,000 to this consultant. And again, great intentions, but what does the state of Florida have for us? What does the EPA, what do other people have for us? We're trying to help with the stormwater. Is there anyone who can help us? And maybe the answer is no. If I hear that, then yes, I agree totally then with Jody. It's going to fall on us either through taxes or through this fee, and we might as well get moving on this. But I just want to know before we go out and take money from anyone or ask the citizens for anything, that we've exhausted our funding sources.
I think part of that is the concern that a grant is a one-time thing. And we're dealing with a recurring maintenance issue here, and that's what the stormwater fee will incorporate. Yeah, there's going to probably be some infrastructure improvement, maybe some new construction infrastructure that could be funded by some of the stormwater fees. But the major concern is the recurring $300,000 to $400,000 a year that we're dealing with this issue. And again, a grant's a one-time thing, but we're looking down the road at the recurring costs and any way to innovatively deal with our capital improvement issues.
I think one thing we have to remember, I think it's good to implement this for this reason. There's always going to be maintenance and repair in the future. So this money can be earmarked strictly for the maintenance and repair once the system is completed. Granted, there won't be enough money for quite a while coming in, but at least we know that that money is earmarked and we know it's going to be maintained in the future. So again, every year it can be assessed and the rates can be lowered. We can take less money just to cover what we need for that up and coming year as far as maintenance. So we know it's not going to foot the whole bill, but I still think it's a good thing to go ahead and do. And at least we know we're covered on maintenance, without a question. If there's money in the budget, we know that money's going to be there for them to get the job done, to keep the streets from flooding.
I agree, but I just think it has to be a two-pronged attack, that we look for I think the guiding principle, anytime we're trying to raise taxes, raise fees, raise anything in the city, I think we have to look to see what else is available. I want to know, I want to be able to go back to these citizens. I made a promise to the citizens, I'm not going to raise your taxes. I want to be able to, but I did make promises that we're going to fix the infrastructure up. I realize that's not free, and we were surprised, obviously, that we found we had to use reserved funds, if you will, to cover our expenses, our capital expenses. So I'm willing to say, okay, I will vote for an increase, but here's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because we're changing and really fixing this infrastructure that's been neglected for a bit. But I want to know that, if somebody comes to me and says, did you check? I don't want to find that headline like we saw for, Palm Harbor, Palm Beach, whatever, they got 8.9 million. I don't want to find out that, Reddington Beach got $8 million for their stormwater thing, because I'm going to be sitting here going, well, why didn't we? Again, we may not be eligible for any of this stuff, but I guess I would like to know that as we're going along before I vote yes on hitting anybody with a fee.
Well, I think I agree with both of you. I mean, I understand a grant is a one-time thing, but if you can get a grant to pay for two of the streets, well, then that's a whole bunch of money we save. Not saying that this is not a good idea too for maintenance, like you said, it's gonna take several years before you have enough money to do anything with it. So it's kind of like, I'm more in favor of both. Just because we have this doesn't mean we can't look for grants also. I'm like, even if we get one, even if it's $10,000, well, that's $10,000 less than we have to spend. So I'm in favor of doing both, but I say if we're gonna do this, we can't neglect our due diligence to look for other options as well.
That really segues into two things. One is the Finance Committee recognizes the issue with grants. Okay, and just like we just talked about a traffic calming policy, I think it's time for the city to come up with a grant policy. The city manager is getting really smart on this stuff because when he deals with engineering projects now, he built into the scope of the project that the engineering firm doing the design work build the scope so that it gives us a competitive edge for applying for grants. Gives us the maximum number of points for when we apply for a grant, and it also asks them to identify possible sources for grants out there. So, yeah, it's a multi-pronged attack, and the city manager is dealing with a lot of this grant issue. We've been hammering for grants all along.
And you have to understand, you know, I think a lot of people think grants just fall out of the sky, and they don't. And, you know, we've submitted 2 stormwater grants, or 2 dealt with SWIFMUD. We don't qualify for their cooperative funding. We went to FEMA. I don't know what you have there, Mayor. I'm guessing whatever it is, it's Florida FDEP.
Florida EPA, DEP.
Yeah, so if you provide that to me, I'll be glad to talk to them, but I'm not guaranteeing you that we would even qualify for that.
And some of these we don't. I mean, some of these are clearly not for us. Some of them are for clean water, projects.
That's most of,
Right.
most of it.
Let's, I'm with Robin. Let's
We can add.
approach here. I want to hear that none of this, there's no grant money, so we have to fund this ourselves. That's good, that we've done our due diligence as a council here, because I could look the taxpayer in the eye and say, listen, it's either we fund this or it keeps flooding, that's it.
Well, 7th Street's a good example. We put it in, and I explained to you that we don't meet the cost-benefit ratio. I'm guessing what you have there is grants that are going to clean up watershed or something.
Some of it's for wastewater, it is. I mean, so you're welcome to this, I'll show you where I got it.
Yeah.
I just Googled it, it was not, I didn't do a lot of work.
So, I'm guessing that's what it is if it's from Florida EPA. You know, they do a lot of stuff with, which we don't have. You know, they have creeks and stuff that they do clean water, refurbish, or, they treat the water before it goes into something. And that's probably what those grants are.
Also, just as an aside, I mean, June and I
We
took
can ask.
June and I took a tour of the sewage treatment plant back in, I think, September or something like that. Great little tour. It's very interesting, actually. And we brought up stormwater, and they said, "Oh, we can help you on that." So again, I didn't take it any further than that, but I can get you in touch with the person that we spoke to, and she's one of the people who run that plant. They'll help us. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe they'll do nothing. Maybe it's nothing that they can help us on. But I would like to reach out to them and exhaust those possibilities. I was speaking with another mayor today who was talking about low-interest loans that he's getting through the county to do projects in the city. I don't know if any of this is possible, but he's lobbying the hell out of the county to get money for them. I mean, we all know what happened on 7th Street when we cornered the commissioners at the local Sam's Club. We got a $2 million project for the city at no cost. So that kind of stuff is, if you ask, sometimes you get it. Most of the times you won't, but sometimes you will.
No, we ask. We beg as much as we
I
can.
don't mind begging. So we have to come
At
back
this
and...
point, I think really what long-term, I don't care if you get 5 grants. Long-term, you still need to look at the stormwater as a way to maintain and hopefully someday have a reserve that you can use if you have a project. a major project, or something happens, or, in the last year, we relined a couple pipes that were crushed, and we got in there before they broke through. So that's a good thing. That saved the city some money because we relined the pipes, and those will last a good 15 to 20 years, reline, typically, because it's as hard as the concrete that was in the pipe in most cases. So I think going forward, though, we need to look at the long-term, bigger picture. As the vice mayor said, and even Robin said, a grant is a one-time thing. And just because you put in a grant today, that's a grant for technically a year or two later. So this is a look at the long term instead of, okay, we're going to get $4 million in grants, which is, I'm not going to say it's pie in the sky, but that's probably not going to happen.
So we put this on for approval. Do we have a consensus that we put this on for approval at the next council meeting to get you moving forward? But I'm going to show my cards right up front. I'll give you this information. I'll work with you on it. I'll help you lobby. But I'm not going to drop this without trying to get every penny for the city. I want the money. I'm tired of hearing about other cities getting our money. So let's see what we can get. And maybe we'll get 10,000. You know what? It's 10,000 less. I don't know. We got 1,000 people. That's $10. Everybody gets a Happy Meal in the city because, we got 10 extra bucks per person that we don't need. I mean, I'll take it. Okay? And maybe we'll get $500,000. Maybe we'll get 200,000. I don't know.
Well, it's I understand the county. I'm working with the county now to get 50,000 for the beach easement, walkovers. And we'll probably get that money.
County's got money. They got $40 million for the Phillies. They got money. So,
Well, that's out of their beach fund.
Yeah.
Not out of.
Can I just add one thing with regards to this? And we talked about this in the finance committee their last session they met, and we talked about we have $3.8 million remaining in this capital improvement fund for stormwater. And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was 30,000-ish that was maintenance for the prior year for stormwater. So to give you some idea of numbers we're talking about, and when we're looking at this fee, the likelihood of collecting 100,000 to 150,000 a year is all we're looking at, compared to 3.8 million that we intend to spend, plus an ongoing maintenance. So just kind of giving you guys some numbers to think about when we enter into voting on this at the next meeting.
And Jody, I think I heard it in the finance committee, but we're talking about an annual fee. I heard something like, don't hold me, 125, 150, 175 per household. What is the number that we're actually throwing around?
Well, we said, Lynn and I kind of just estimated maybe $10 a month, maybe, but it's going to be up to whatever the study shows us,
I crunched some numbers on that today because I need to get with the city manager to understand how the stormwater fee would be broken down. But there's basically two ways to estimate what the financial gain is going to be to the city. There's two methodologies. One is you start with a total number of how much do we want to get out of this annually, like 100,000, 150,000. And then the other way of calculating it is come up with a subjective cap of what you think the monthly fee should be for stormwater, okay? So I crunched the numbers both ways. So I said, okay, if you went with a 100,000 reduction in our capital improvement debt annually, it's going to equate to probably a $10 to $13 per month increase for the residents. Okay? If you come up with a subjective cap on monthly stormwater fees of about $8 monthly, the range is somewhere between $62,000 and $77,000 that we are going to benefit and put back into our coffers. So again, there's two different ways of doing this. Chris Rowe and Stantec will help us figure out what is reasonably apportionable, and everybody is fairly assessed with that thing. But again, we kind of have some control over this thing, and you just need to kind of understand what the numbers are, what the number range is. Is it unreasonable, $8 to $10 a month for but we can put that to the city's conference. I think it's that unreasonable.
I don't think it's unreasonable, but I would suggest to this council that before we, not to get the study going, but before we actually vote to implement this, that we actually invite the citizens specifically, not bury it in the minutes someplace or in the agenda, but invite them to a meeting specifically on this, make the presentation, explain what the limitations that we're facing, and then hear from them, and not from one or two people, but open it up to the citizens, because I do want to hear what the rest of the city has to say. Yes, we're very much involved in this, and we know all the detail, but other people don't, and they just know, the price is going up, and why is it going up, and what's happening here. So I would suggest we do that. We don't have to, I don't believe. We can just put it as a regular agenda item, but we might want to highlight this one just so that it doesn't come back.
You have to have a public hearing.
I think we would have to, okay, so even if we did, we should.
Mandatory.
Good, so we should.
It's the same thing we did with the underground.
Okay.
Open it up.
All right, so we have consensus then that this will move to the council, next council session for vote, right? We didn't open it up to the floor. Any objection to opening it to the floor? Citizens, any comments? There are no comments. So council, any further comments before we conclude it? Okay. Mr. Reeves, I will give you the information that I have, and you and I can, work. And again, this is 20 minutes of work, okay? So there may be more out there. I'm not claiming that this is the total population. All right, we have a discussion on technology. I know Steve Marsh was going to make this presentation, but Mark Goldman, I believe, is taking the role formerly occupied by Steve Marsh. So, Mr. Goldman.
And also, Steve sent some documents that Patty forwarded. No, she made copies, right? And forward. We're trying to double edge it.
Good evening, Council. Mark Goldman, 437 27th Street. I am standing in for Steve Marsh since he was called out of town and couldn't be here. The basic issue that Steve is trying to raise with the city is that due to the overwhelming success of the undergrounding project and the notoriety the city is getting because of its effort to be as green as possible and to take advantage of technology to solve problems. He came up with and identified another solution to possibly issues that we have within our city as well as other cities. And he found a company in Atlanta, Georgia called Flock, F-L-O-C-K, Safety. I know that he sent out documentation to most of you, or some of you, by email. Did everybody get a copy of what it was? There are some interesting URLs to click on and go to and look at the documentation that the company provides about their statistics. Let me read to you just a very brief company overview, and then I'll open this up for if any of you have any questions about it. I can answer some of them, but not all of them. Just wanted to make the council aware of what Steve was trying to introduce. So Flock's safety mission is to eliminate nonviolent crime. This is possible with citywide coverage of automatic license plate readers for both public safety organizations and private citizens. When a crime occurs, Flock safety cameras deliver the actionable evidence you need to make an arrest. The company is headquartered in Atlanta. Flock's safety camera systems are live in over 400 cities in 36 states. Over 100 police departments utilize its camera service to do investigative work. With 400 million cars captured per month and the hot list notifications live within those police jurisdictions throughout the United States, Flock is helping the agency solve crime hour by hour. I'm only here this evening to make you aware of the initiative that he has posed to the city to think about. I don't think that we're asking for anything more than to think about it and see if this is something that we can use as Beller Beach to take another step towards being IT savvy, green, and solving problems without expending a lot of taxpayers' money. So I urge all of you to take a look at the documentation. I know when he gets back, he'll probably want to come to speak to you because he's very passionate about this and a lot of things. And I wanted to give you a head start so that you could have taken a diligent look at all of the information, and then we can, as a city, decide whether or not there's some benefit to looking deeper into this. And I appreciate your time tonight and being added as a guest speaker. So if there's any questions about what I said or what you think the project is about, maybe I can answer them, and if not, we'll familiarize ourselves with the documentation, and then we'll wait for Steve to return and be able to speak to us.
Council?
Mark, I talked to Steve about this, and it's not a bad idea from what I've read. The thing is that I'm concerned about is the legality of it. Could we place this on a major street? I mean, he had mentioned Gulf Boulevard, South, North, and Causeway. Those are the incoming arteries of the city. Whether we'd be able to place a system like that within the city limits, I don't know. I talked to him and just suggested, I said, maybe Bellevue Island Estates could adopt this at the bridge.
Well, I had similar conversations about that. His comments were that these cameras are deployed all over the United States within cities, municipalities, and counties, and they're welcomed by the supporting sheriffs and police authorities within those cities. No one has any objection to having technology help them solve crimes within their cities. And I think that going through the steps that would be necessary to allow the cameras to be installed certainly has got to be following the rules of law and all of the required permissions. I want to make sure that we don't think that this in any way has any relation to those red light cameras, which everybody seems to have issues with, even though they do save lives, by letting people know that they better stop at stoplights and red lights. But it isn't anything like that. It's used for investigative purposes by law enforcement after the fact that a crime has occurred. And when they know the approximate time, they have real-time access to the digital films down to the license plate number of the cars that either perpetrated, participated, or were in the area at the time. Now, this can be used in neighborhoods as well as on the main streets. And when you have cars that are broken into in the evening or late into the early morning, you'll be able to see every car that entered the area. And not us as individuals, but law enforcement will have access to those tag numbers and be able to solve crime in a lot easier way. So,
I asked that similar question to Mr. Marsh, and I got that same answer. I know, without giving away any trade secrets, that it's being used by some, not this system, but other similar systems are being used by law enforcement in Florida. As an attorney, you basically have no right to privacy once you go outside your house. So as long as it's getting you on public property, public streets. With that said, my biggest concern is what we will do with these films, who they will be going to, because there is a potential for abuse on this.
Oh, yeah.
Although it could tell us when you leave your house, it could tell us who you left your house with, and I want to know who's getting this, what we're going to be doing with it. I think it has tremendous potential for helping us in making this city. We have a very safe city as it is, but even making it that much safer. And if something does happen, you have that information of who's traversing. We only have 2 main streets here, so you have to take one of them to get in and out of the city. But with that said, we have to be very careful as to, if I were to support something like this, we have to be very careful that it's not going to be abused.
and I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, my number one priority here is privacy, as it is for all of us. I think the technology and the way it's deployed and the access to view and look at any of those videos of the cars is limited to only law enforcement. We don't have log-ons to go look at this type of film or video. I think it's highly regulated and very controlled, but those are not questions that are not going to be asked by everybody, including myself. So, good point.
I guess my question is how big of a problem do we have in the city where we require? Because every time the sheriffs come up, I mean, they don't really report a whole bunch of issues, and usually the car break-ins are because somebody didn't lock their car door, so that's just your due diligence to protect your property. And, you know, we're always talking in the city about money, and we're doing stormwater fees to try to get money into the city, and, you know, we worked on the budget and skimmed it down, and now he's asking us to pay $12,000 for cameras to catch one car break-in a month or 3 months. So I don't know, I mean, I like technology, I like the idea, and if we were like flowing in money, I would say sure, why not? But I don't think this is necessary right now when we don't have enough money to take care of flooded streets.
Well, I'm not here to defend the notion nor the project, just to make sure that you're given the opportunity to take a look at it. I know that he has already, in his inimitable way, negotiated a much better deal for the city. And so, but I hear you, and yes, you raise a valid point as well. Let's just see what he has to say when he comes back, and if we get an opportunity to look at the material, we'll have questions for him, and hopefully he'll have some answers.
Will he come to the next, this isn't, not something that we want to bring up at a council session, because council session is supposed to be for action items. So next work session is the 19th of February. Could he make that one?
I will do my very best to make it
And
happen.
of course, you're welcome to present with him also, of course.
Okay, very good.
Anybody have any other questions? Citizens? Okay.
Thank you
Mr.
for your
Goldman.
time.
Thank you very much.
The last item that we had was a legislative update, and I promised I'd keep it brief. I was at Suncoast League of Cities today, and I told you I was going to keep you advised as to what's going on in our friends up in Tallahassee. Well, they're at it again, folks. You know, I had issue, and I'm glad to see I wasn't alone as the only mayor who had issues with where Suncoast League of Cities was. They put out these legislative priorities that they're worried about resiliency and transportation and modernizing wastewater systems. And you have to understand, and I'm going to say this because I'm saying it publicly, but you know, it's driven by the people that are in charge of that. And some of the cities that these folks represent don't have the same issues that a city like Bel Air Beach has. So that became pretty obvious today when we were hearing about the activities of the legislators. That whole idea of the short-term rental bill, to basically stop us from having a prohibition on short-term rentals, it is alive and kicking. It has passed the legislature, the House already. It's went through, I think, 2 committees, and it's well on its way to coming to the floor. The Senate, you might have seen that Senator Brandeis voted against it. And at first I was like, wow, we finally got to Senator Brandeis to vote against this thing. And then it was found out that he voted against it because he just wanted to move it through the committee, but he really would have voted for it if they needed the vote. So I'm not so sure what will happen as it goes further. It's not moving as fast in the Senate, but if that happens, folks, you can take our short-term rental ordinance and just throw it away. So the house next to you can be a rental property, they can do whatever they want, and the 7 folks up here can't do a darn thing about it. Okay? And they're getting really crafty, because when that fails, what they're saying is, they said that there's a House bill, HB 203, CS, or HB 203, and Senate Bill 410, and it's a counterpart, and it says, well, if we don't get it through that way, okay, you have to have a property rights element, and there must be a property rights element in all of our local charters and information. Well, guess what's going to be in that property rights? That your neighbor can do whatever they want with their house. See, it doesn't matter what happens to your house, it's just what your neighbor feels like doing. And that's going to be the property rights. So they're trying to get it in through the back door if they can't get it in through the front door. This is what we need to focus on as a city. This is what we should be using our social media for, and we should get people riled up about this stuff. Keep an eye on it. This is a short session, it may not make it. They pushed it last time, it didn't make it. Chris DeSigli, our representative, is totally for this. okay? So you can talk to him all you want, but I don't know if you're going to get anywhere. He won't even show up at most of our meetings. In fact, I've never met him. But Senator Brandeis did vote against it, so call up Senator Brandeis, be respectful, and tell him to keep voting no against this thing. We don't want this. This will kill our city. And you can not worry about your stormwater assessments, because just talk to the people out in Indian Rocks. They lost their grandfathering, and it is a disaster. Talk to their mayor, absolute disaster. I'm going to the big city. Marv usually comes with me on that. As you know, we had a press conference not too long ago. All the mayors in unison said, hey, don't do this, okay? I don't know how much impact it made, but I'm going to bring it up again. I brought it up last meeting, I'm going to bring it up again this meeting, because that's what we should be doing. And if Suncoast isn't going to do it, then I think maybe we attack it through the big city. And if not, then we're going to have to get together as a city and just let them know that this is not what Bel Air Beach wants. And believe me, it's every other city up and down this coast. Nobody wants this stuff. They have other stuff in mind. I heard this. Dave was and Marv were at this meeting just last week, and the Suncoast League of Cities meeting last week, and they're talking about our crosswalks here. And it's because one person, now I really feel bad that one person in Broward County got killed in a crosswalk. I almost got killed last year and nobody made any bills on my behalf. But they're making a bill that would basically outlaw the yellow lights. Again, it won't maybe pass, but maybe it will pass. And it wouldn't be yellow. It'll have to be red or nothing. So think about it, okay? We'll have what, 7 crossings, Lynn? We have 7 or 8 crossings on Gulf Boulevard? 4 crossings? Okay, so we'll have 4 red lights. We got 1 right now in the whole city, and it backs up to Largo. So we'll have 4, because some guy in Tallahassee thinks this is a great idea. Or we don't want 4 red lights within a space of 1 mile, so we will have no crosswalks at all that have any traffic control. You cross at your own risk. Okay, not a great idea. So keep an eye on it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. I could sit here for hours going through it. This is what they do up in Tallahassee, some of them, and I mean, just keep an eye on this stuff. I think if you're tuned into the League of Cities, you get a daily or weekly update of all the legislation. It's not too hard to get it. It's on their website. These folks are out kind of, attacking our home rule, and this is very, very important. And just want to keep everyone advised. So this is where we want to put our efforts, and I'll keep letting you know. Any questions? Okay. That was the end of the formal agenda. Do we have anything else?
Mayor, I've just got a couple quick things. I left this site security assessment that I got the sheriff to do. We've had one vendor come out and give us a price, and we'll get another one just to look at. And then I had a resident, this was sent to you, radio frequency deployment in Bel Air Beach. I actually had 3 residents and another local person come in and speak with me yesterday. And I don't think the city council would have a problem with this. They would like to have a meeting that they could invite the residents to. And it deals with the issue with Duke Energy replacing these meters with smart meters. They're saying it emits radio frequencies. And I just wanted to let the council know, unless you have an objection to it.
I don't think I have that brochure that you're referencing. Yeah.
Eddie, didn't you send that forward?
Yeah, I got it.
You did.
It was emailed.
Me.
Don't do email, so you have to mail it,
Yeah. Okay, but in any case, it was, Patty sent it out.
Okay.
And I don't think it's a bad thing, it's just information given to the citizens. There's a movie of about, I think it was like an hour and 10 minutes. We'll have them hook a computer up, and if the residents want to come, we'll advertise it and just put it out here. If the council doesn't have any objection to it.
I'm not sure, I haven't seen the document, so I don't know whether this is legitimate science, junk science, good stuff or not. But I would love to have someone from Duke Energy here to refute anything that's said, because we have a great relationship with these folks, and I don't want somebody trashing them at basically.
And that's fine, I'll work that out.
And they get the information in advance so that they know what's coming, so.
Okay. And then, along with that, I've got Florida, just to let you know at the next meeting, Florida Wildlife Commission, I've got someone coming to do I told her 10 minutes, 15 tops about coyotes. So she's gonna come to the council meeting and give a presentation right at the beginning. And she'll get that information out to the residents.
Can I add to the Duke? I sent that email to an expert who said that that there's some mixed truths, that a lot of what was in that letter was overstated, and I would not be in support of us opening the floor to rallying up a bunch of neighbors without Duke involved in that meeting.
No, and I mentioned that to him yesterday. I said, I think Duke should have the option to refuse anything.
And if Duke
It's
were not
kinda-
a
it's kinda
tent, then I
strange.
wouldn't provide a facility for them to do that, to provide.
Well,
Just
we'll-
gotta be
we'll-
cautious.
But it would have to be sometime in February. It's not gonna be next week.
And this is not a council sanctioned thing.
No,
I mean,
no,
I'm not
just
taking
be
a
a-
position one way or the other on this because it sounds
It
to
would
me
just
like.
be a
I'm not so
president
sure.
information session, I guess. I just want to make sure the council's aware of it and they don't have any issue with it, as long as we invite both.
Well, and to add to it is that Pinellas County is also installing automated meters for our water meters. So, I know they're doing it in Largo right now. So, you know, if this is going to be an issue with every utility, I think they need to take it up with the utility.
Well, the thing that kind of caught me off guard was if you opt out of the meter, you got to buy a meter. And the meter that I was shown a picture of had Progress Energy on it, which is the old Florida Progress, which is years ago. So that probably, in looking at it, it looks like it's just the old meter that you used to have, okay? And then you have to pay a fee of $14 to $18 a month for them to come and read that meter.
That's because they don't want to pay for someone to walk your property.
But I guess for years, I don't think they've ever come on the property to read the meters. They're just driving down the street. This, as I understand it, this new system is going to be done kind of like satellite or internet, as opposed to what we used to have.
My only point on this, I mean, again, you know, if somebody, and this is a city hall and people are free to use it within, you know, within the rules, okay? Duke has to be here, it's not council sanctioned, and I really question why this is being done after everything's been installed. When we were noticed on this, I remember getting my notice and all of a sudden, you know, I totally forgot about it too, like everyone else, and then some dude shows up in a Duke truck at my property, I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm giving you new radio, you know, new meter. I'm like, okay, have at it, and, you know, we did it, so,
And I
after
think
they're all
those
installed in the city is not the time to start, you know, raising issues about it. I mean, they're already in.
I don't think, I'm going to be honest with you, I think most people probably didn't.
And they have their place.
I just you get more radio stuff from your cell phone.
It's a large next door
Yeah.
topic right now, and it's been opened up 3 or 4 times, and there's a group of people that are adamant about discussing it. And I wouldn't have a problem watching a film. However, I would like the producer of the film to be here, to be prepared to answer questions. Otherwise, there's no accountability for the person who actually produced the film.
Yeah, I haven't seen the film. I was asked if I watched it. I'm not much of a television watcher, so me sitting anywhere for an hour is a long time.
And this is not going away. 5G is coming.
Yeah.
And whenever it gets here, we're going to have so many towers everywhere, because the goal is to form a grid. And so this isn't going away, and I believe that the way that the state of Florida has laid out the rules is that they can pretty much put a utility anywhere they will please.
Yeah,
And they have very little that we can do about it.
I was just gonna say, that came from the last legislative session where they said, yeah, we would put it wherever we want in their city, so it could be on the house next to you if they, well, maybe not the house, but it could be on the telephone pole across the street, so, yeah, not
Yeah.
good.
And just an FYI, at the end of next month, the last week, I'm planning on going to a flood risk management conference, so I'll be out of the city that last week, unless I change my mind. But I meet the CEUs, and there's a topic about FEMA grants that they're actually gonna bring someone in tonight for a half-day session, so that might be advantageous.
Then if you could publicize the Coyote meeting, okay? I have a feeling it's gonna last for more than 15 minutes with the residents because there seems to be a lot of concern about this. I know Indian Rocks had a meeting on it. I saw my first coyote, thanks to June. Eagle Eye spotted it out our window, and so I'm out there at 12 midnight looking at some coyote across the street, and it went to the vacant lot on the beach and it disappeared. But it's gonna come up, and let's get everybody up to speed on what the deal is with the coyotes and what you can and can't do. Because I've heard some stuff that is just downright improper and wrong, and, and solutions that, like, let's have a hunt. No, we can't have a hunt. So, let's come up with sensible stuff of what we can do, which I don't think is all gonna be all that much.
Well, somebody in the Northeast just strangled one.
Saw that. But it was attacking his kid.
For this meeting with the residents for the RFA, this isn't gonna be like a work session, this is just gonna be them coming to.
No, it would be just us opening up the city hall and have their meeting.
'Cause, I'm with Dave, I'm hesitant about these videos, because I could go make a video and say, hey, I'm a doctor, this has to be true, and people will believe me because it's on the internet, so it has to be true. So, I'm hesitant, because, for every video that says RF is bad, there's probably one that says it's good for you and it will cure cancer, so
Good cast to be here.
yeah.
I mean, for me to say yes, it's good, and I don't know if there's 6 other votes here, but
No, I
Duke
think that's
must be
what I
here. If they
got.
say no, it's no. So
It's only fair, they're the ones that put meters on.
I don't want to scare the residents.
We also have potential other projects we'd like to do with Duke.
Yeah.
It would not be advantageous for us to leave a bad taste in the mouth about our city.
Yeah, and if you go to News Channel 10, I don't have the link, but Clear World, the vice mayor was down there, but I guess he ended up on the film floor.
Yeah, I was just photographing it.
Oh, Lynn made, yes, you made the
Yeah,
interview.
we saw that.
I saw that, yes, it was very good.
But the lighting installation is, they're back, and they're getting it worked out. It's a good little PR, I thought, when the girl asked me if I would do that. I think it's good public relations to the community, and it was good for Clear World too. No, it was not fun, it was cold.
Well, you're not the only TV star. After seeing you, I was inspired, so I made my PSA public service announcement for the census, and I just want to let everyone know that's coming up in February. Lynn's going to get a copy of that. I guess we can maybe put it out on the website, but it's really important. I'm sure Bel Air Beach is going to do really well with this, but we need to answer that census. It's coming up. It's only done once every 10 years, so it's coming out in February. There's a big push to make sure everyone complies with it, so they've got me and had all the other mayors make PSAs, so
Or they'll be knocking on your door.
yeah, don't make me come to your house.
I've got a question. Went through the park probably 6 months ago with June, went back with her again here recently, and I don't remember what I'm going to refer to as a stormwater. If you take a look at the park on the south end, you've got all those trees and all that debris on that valley.
Are you talking here?
Yeah. Right up there.
That's mangroves.
Well, right, but there's a lot of roots and debris and mud in the bottom.
We clean that out periodically.
What,
Out here, unfortunately, the city, at some point in time with the county, agreed to let the mangroves grow with only what I call peak outs. So, because when I talked to them about
Falling down.
lowering them, and there was no, they kind of pushed back on that. So, but I know what you're talking about. We do try to clean that out periodically because it's tidal. It's it's like the boat ramp. And you can go down there some days, it's nothing there. The next day you go there, guess what? It's loaded with debris, and we try to pick up as much as we can, and you're not ever going to prevent that. But you're not going to touch those mangroves.
And what I was thinking, and I don't remember what the stormwater plan looks like, I haven't looked at it for a while, but is there a plan to put a seawall
No,
at the park? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, no.
Move that valve out to the ocean front, and that would allow, cedar backs up when it rains a lot. And there's,
Well, that's part of the 9th Street project where we enlarge the pipes and flow, because where that water goes, it goes into the stormwater pond that's at the back of the tennis courts. It stays wet all the time, that water flows into there. That's a treatment pond, then it flows into the box right near the roadway, and then it goes under the road into the drainage swale.
well, if that drainage swale, if the valve was moved out at the ocean, that would be a lot of extra, absolutely to get rid of the mangroves.
You aren't going to get rid of it.
Well, maybe help clean that area up because it's quite thick. I know there's a lot of work that you guys have done. Before you couldn't even see into it, now you can see through it.
Yeah, we've taken, I think there's one tree that's not a mangrove. Everything else we've cut out of there. And it's a nice big tree. It's about that big around. And actually, it's kind of open around. But the rest of that stuff from the boardwalk that way is mangroves. And then our stormwater pond's got some mangroves in it, which, at some point in time, we'll try to get a permit to clean that out.
Well, that's what I was thinking, that seawall was put across there, then you could create, maybe.
I know what it's created, but I know what the county says about mangroves too.
Touch the mangroves.
Just think about it, maybe our stormwater, we need the extra capacity.
Well, see, here's what the county's gonna tell you with that. They're gonna say that those mangroves treat that stormwater. That's what they're gonna tell you.
They do.
And technically they do. It's a treatment system. And that's kind of what happens here. It comes back here into the first stormwater pond. It's a treatment system into the second one. The second one stays wet. And that's where the drainage comes from cedar and spruce is the next one. Yeah, so that drainage, but that is part of the treatment process.
You got more treatment process.
Hey, Mark, you're preaching to the choir. I had,
So I see this as a special project for Mark to
Yeah.
take on.
I see me visiting Marv in jail over here if he gets nailed for taking a
actually,
mangrove.
we had a mayor in Oldsmar. And he was on the city council for a long time. He used to go out at night.
Yeah, don't do this at home.
I have one last question with regards to the coyote meeting. Can we push that to its own meeting? I mean, does that have to be at a city council meeting if we're gonna start inviting, if we're gonna make it known to residents and we expect a big turnout that's gonna turn our council meeting into kind of a work session meeting rather than,
I mean, I can talk to the Fish and Wildlife Commission person. She's very accommodating.
right?
And maybe we can do it just as a public meeting. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, if that's pleasure. What she's done at the other city councils, she's done it at the council meeting.
I think we might want to, I mean, they're going to look to us for a solution. They are already, and even though they've been told, people have been told, like, you can't trap raccoon, all we can do is trap these things, and that's at your private expense, but they're still gonna look to us for a solution. So I think one way or the other, as council, we're gonna have to be there. We could set a time limit to this. I mean, we have the
We
right
need
to
to
do
set a
that.
time limit.
Then that's what we
We
do.
need to-
So
Because it could go for hours.
how much time do you think is fair? I mean, because you're right, this could go for hours. I
If
mean,
she's got a 15-minute presentation, I don't think it should take more than a half hour, and then if it does drag me out, if people want to continue, then we can say, look, we can have another meeting and talk about these items. Or if you have suggestions, email, we'll come up with it and talk about it in a work session. I mean, I don't know why we would tie up an entire council meeting discussing.
Yeah, she's gonna bring brochures and stuff like that, and she said she would stay around after if people had questions. So maybe that's a good way to handle it. Say, if you've got questions, we'll
Open the conference room.
we'll open the conference room.
So we'll, we in consensus that a half an hour is sufficient time, 15 minutes for the presenter, 15 minutes for questions. I mean, they're going to be the same questions, so we don't have to hear from 100. If 100 people say, council, it's your responsibility to go out and hunt these things, okay, we got it, we can't do it, and that's that. But at least we hear it, I mean, so we could have a hunt. So Patty, could you put in for that council session so that everybody knows on the agenda, it's going to be limited to 1/2 hour. We're allowed to do this under our rules, and that 15 minutes is dedicated to the presenter, 15 minutes is going to be dedicated to the, keep our council comments to a minimum, but, certainly to the citizens, we want to open it up. But we want to let them know in front so that.
And then we'll plan on
And then open up the conference room afterward for information and private sessions, because they can really answer it better than we can.
Yeah, she was very, when I spoke to her, she was very helpful and said, hey, I can do whatever you want me to do.
Do we know what, I wasn't able to attend Indian Rocks, but do we know what came out of Indian Rocks? Or was it just more informative for citizens?
From what I understand, all she's done is more information. She did tell me, because I guess kind of going around, you can't kill them, but if they become aggressive, I guess you can do that. They don't have a program in the state like they do for the alligators, where if you've got an alligator problem, you call the state hotline and they'll come take it away, and they'll catch up with the chicken on the string and all of that.
Have we had any reported, other than seeing them, are there any reported incidences, safety issues? There's not, right?
No, I haven't had anybody that's said anything to me other than they've seen them. I've had a couple of my neighbors say they saw them, because I take my little dog out, and they said, you gotta watch it. And I do have to watch him, because he can laugh. But it's been kind of strange times, like 10 or 11 at night, and 5 o'clock in the morning.
There's a lot of missing cats on it.
I've noticed that too.
But I haven't heard that they've seen, in most cases, it's one coyote. It isn't a half a dozen or something.
Yeah, I think there were 2 in my neighbor's backyard, she said she saw, but
You didn't get them?
They can educate about what you can and can't do too. I mean, again, yes, I read the same article you did, this guy strangled a coyote with his bare hands. You can do that if you want, but don't take out your trusty 22 because you're gonna get arrested. I mean, I don't want people, jumping
No,
to conclusions.
she'll explain
Okay.
that, because there are some things you can do, but if they're aggressive, if they get up under your deck, if you've got a deck, who knows what you can do, but, it's just, she'll explain all that.
All right.
Hey, Lynn, question here. I just looked at the last page of sheriff's assessment. How does that fall into what the original proposal you
Well,
had? Pretty close.
it's close other than the outdoor cameras. And we've got another company that gave us a quote. And we're going to go back to when we got originally and ask them to update, because we didn't have any outdoor cameras on their quote.
And did you talk at that time about a plexiglass?
He did,
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, we talked about it briefly, but you didn't quote it then.
No, that would be a separate company. But the sheriff did make that comment. And actually, he said, you may not want to make it all glass, you may want to make it.
Then, I don't want to cut you off on this, I do, I'm going to though. Security, I think, is an exception to sunshine. This should go in the shade, we shouldn't be divulging what our plans are. So this document, and we can check with Fred, I think this stays in the shade. I don't think this is public, and I think our discussion on this and how we're going to do building security is not something that has to be discussed. So I just want to, so I want to have this discussion, I just don't want to have it, not that there's anything, issue with the 3 people that are in our audience,
Just wanna
but
make
we don't know
sure
who's
we got
listening.
that.
Yes, thank you.
That's why I didn't
Yeah.
bring up.
Yeah, this is, we don't want to show our cards here, what we're doing, because they're, like, we got into discussions of what you've got in the back, and we don't want to talk about everything you have, because the bad guys can be listening to that too. So, do you have anything else from council? I'll turn it open to the city if there's no objection. Is anybody in the city, any comments? June?
June Vanscoy, 7th Street. When we talk about the mangroves, and yes, I did meet with Marmon, I met with a couple of the other council members, and I will be lobbying all of you, so just so you know. I know we can trim the mangroves with a permit. There's a certain percentage and procedure we have to go through in order to do that. I do know that. But when we address the fact that it's preventing us from fixing flooding in our streets, and every time our streets flood, the fertilizer that's in your yard, the weeding feed you put in your yard, and anything else, it goes right into the water table. It runs right off into the water. So if we address this with the county in that manner, I think we would that would help a long ways with being able to maybe remove those mangroves and dredge that area and maybe pipe it in and help eliminate the flooding issue on 9th Street. I have worked with them a little bit before on some of that, and if you all would like my assistance on that, I would be happy to help with that. Also, I'd like at this time to ask that it be put on the agenda for the council meeting on the 3rd to do a presentation from the park board about the grant, if that's possible as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any response from council or city manager? Yeah, I think their board's pretty active. That's fine. I mean, listening to the finance committee tonight, I was there, and Vice Mayor was there, Jody and Marv kind of came in at the end, but, there's people that are interested, so they're welcome to come here. I've already invited I was able to see the planning board meet. It's nice that, some of us know it, but others have, commitments and stuff, so everyone's invited to come here. Glenn was talking about cross-pollination of these ideas, because some of what's happening in the finance committee affects what's happening in the planning board. We can get everyone together over here, and at least they're going to hear what everyone else is doing. There is no sunshine violation if the chairman of the planning board talks to the chairman of the finance committee. They can do that all day long. So, and I encourage them to do so. It will help the end result. So they're all welcome to our meetings. So, anything else? Anybody want to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay. I don't hear any dissent. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.